We are ANN, and this is Planet Talk.
So this is a fun little look at something I put together when Leonard Nimoy died. Great characters are convincing to us because they emerge from deep places within the actor's own psyche. And here are my thoughts concerning Leonard Nimoy's birth chart. I wasn't a hardcore Trekkie. I never went to any, conferences or anything, but I loved Star Trek deeply, and I still do. And I think it holds up amazingly well. This one and Next Generation. So here's Nimoy's chart. He was born with Saturn in opposition with Jupiter, Pluto, 1931. That same year as Groff, actually, and Uranus in a T-square. He shares this with Groff and also with Rajneesh. Check out the podcast I did with James Moran and Erica Jones on Wild Archetypes, where we talk about Rajneesh and Sheila's chart. It was really a fun project. So Mercury and Uranus form a T-square. This manifested in Spock as a deep fear, Saturn, of the dark depths of the emotional id, Pluto. So that's how it manifested for that character. So he was always struggling, this sort of classic Freudian problem of having to keep the lid on this seething cauldron of the instincts, as Freud called it. With a precarious, successful transcendence of that id is connected with Pluto, and the violent pass of the Vulcan race through logic, Mercury, Saturn, that ordered logical mind that Spock, was famous for, and a glorification of the scientific rational mind, Mercury, Uranus, all delivered with consummate authority and conviction, Jupiter, Pluto. The Jupiter, Pluto can be connected with the archetype of the king or queen, kingship or queenship, that feeling of empowerment and authority. He certainly had that. Mercury, Uranus often shows up in the charts of people who glorify science, like the mystical side of numbers. He wasn't just a brain like that Mercury, Saturn. He wasn't just a logical brain. He saw reason and logic as the highest faculty. That's the Mercury, Uranus. So he embodied a profound gravitas, a meditative seriousness, and that's his Mercury, Saturn, Pluto, T-square. You can see Saturn, Mercury, Pluto, T-square. And he was kind of a man of few words, as well as exceptional inner resources and capabilities, Jupiter, Pluto. He also displayed a surprising hipness and coolness. That was his Jupiter, Uranus, Jupiter square Uranus, revealed in unexpected ways, such as the episode where he played a jazzy harp duet with a group of traveling space beatniks. You remember that one, Alex? Check out this episode. What a fun episode. He walks in there with a straight face and has this jam with this woman, and everyone appreciates it, and it walks out. He was like a super cool guy, right? Jupiter, Uranus. The mystical persona and lore of the Vulcans is suggestive of his close Sun-Neptune quincunx, 150 degrees, while the classic mind meld, perhaps resonant with his moon at the midpoint of Mercury and Neptune. This is a wonderful example of a triad, right? This sort of emotional, mental merging, Neptune. He actually came up with the Vulcan salute. It's an ancient Jewish symbol or hand gesture that means something like "live long and prosper," I believe. And he did it on the set, and Gene Roddenberry said, "What was that? I like that," and they adopted that. And I've had a lot of time to practice, so I can do that. Sometimes some people's minds are not quite as peaceful to go into, such as Bones. Nimoy's moon trine Venus found an endearing expression in Spock's storied friendship with Kirk and general likability while his Mars opposition Saturn in the sharp edges, sinewy toughness, and pointed focus of his character. Even his ears were pointy. Spock, as half Vulcan, half human, also embodied deep and unsettling tensions, reflective of his Saturn square Uranus. These archetypes can often bring out tension, right, of various kinds between conservative and liberal impulses, or adventurous and fearful impulses, and so on. This was intensified by the T-square with Pluto. Pluto intensifies that Saturn-Uranus as he struggled with these powerful contradictory forces in his being. Finally, he had a gift for wry, understated comedy. That's Mercury-Uranus is in general connected with comedy. The Mercury-Saturn is the understated comedy, or comedy of insult or put down, often content at the end of Trekkie adventures to be the butt of good-natured ribbing from Bones or Kirk, but also giving back in his consummate eyebrow-raised style. Like one-liner insults about how he's just so grateful that he's not as foolish as the humans, or emotional as the humans, because he was only half human. Spock had mythic stature, suggesting to young 60s and 70s audiences who adored him that science and logic were not antithetical to spirituality, but could be harmonious and supportive. That's that Mercury-Uranus. He is a world icon, an alien with such class, a living embodiment of Gene Roddenberry's vision of a more sane, rational, and cooperative future. And we'll be looking at Roddenberry's chart a few times. Rest in peace in the transpersonal realm. First Officer Spock, your mission is complete. I wrote this up and shared it with Rick and James Moran and some other colleagues, and Rick said he agreed with everything. And